Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Viviana. I am with Nu-IDee, and we're super excited to have you here with us. We are an accounting firm that cares deeply about helping our clients grow, stay safe, and protect everything they have worked so hard to build. One of our values is making sure our clients are not only organized financially, but also protected in other important areas like cybersecurity. That's why today we're hosting this webinar, Protect What You Build, Cybersecurity Power Hour. Today's speaker is Shawn from Nutechvita. He's going to share tips and guidance to help you keep your business safe from online threats. I am so glad you're here, and I know you're going to find this session helpful. Welcome, Shawn.
Thank you, Viviana. Appreciate that very nice introduction. Go ahead and get set up here. See if I can go ahead and get my presentation displayed. Perfect. All right. So yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you. I appreciate you joining us for this 30-minute webinar, really an effort to prioritize your digital security. Who am I? Been in the industry for about 15 years, working with publicly traded companies, taking care of IT security and compliance. In the IT industry itself, though, I've been about 26 years now, and I've seen a lot of interesting things, which is what brought about the idea of doing this webinar. Throughout the years, I've actually had probably two major security incidents that I was involved with that I helped companies get out of. But in general, seeing users with different security incidents, and I'm not talking about widespread outage, but even just someone having their account hacked or something, just affecting that individual person, a lot of it is due to lack of knowledge. Yes, there's some that may be negligence, but for the most part, it's a lack of knowledge. And that's why I want to go ahead and just briefly go over some of the methods we can use every day to better secure our authentication methods. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and go into presentation mode. See if I can get here. Okay, there we go. Passwords, passkeys, and beyond. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail as far as what I mean with beyond. But what I'm hoping with this webinar is really provide you a better understanding of what modern authentication methods we can use today and what practical steps you can use to better secure your business. Towards the end of the webinar, I'll take a few questions that Viviana is going to grab in the chat, and then probably even do a little bit of a demo of using a security key with an email service. But moving forward, let's figure out where we're at today with authentication in 2025. Authentication, really, in its most basic form, is a digital handshake. It's really a way we prove who we are online. Passwords in general is something that everyone understands. We've been using it over a couple decades now, probably mid 90s when some major providers were providing accounts online, AOL and others, where you created a username and a password. The same problem that was present then is still present now, or problems, I should say, which is why, as you see some of these statistics that I'm mentioning, 80% of breaches typically involve a weak or stolen password or credentials. And really all businesses are targeted to these attacks, whether it's healthcare, legal, accounting. The reality is where there's money to be made, bad actors are going to be there to try to make it. Yes, private individuals get affected as well, but really where the big stakes are at is with businesses. That's why it's super important for us to really have a good comprehension as what's involved with having good password or good security policies that we should in place when using passwords. And the reality is attackers are becoming much more advanced ever than before. Now it's really automated in most cases. We have things that exist now like ransomware AI. In the dark web, there's ransomware as a service. So you don't even need someone that's a quote unquote hacker to create or organize a ransomware attack. They can just pay a group to do this. And unfortunately, that's the state we're in right now. In other words, passwords simply are not enough. Now, Speaking of that, I just want to share a really unfortunate incident, just an example of this. This company, KNP, it's a company based out of the UK. This happened late last year. I think it was around December 2024. If you Google it, you'll get different articles around that time. This Russian cyber criminal network called Akira Group basically attacked this organization or this company, this logistics company. They demanded anywhere between, I think, it was 2.7 to 5.3 million for the ransomware or for the ransom. And even though this company did have cybersecurity insurance, they were not able to recover their financial records. And all of this started through a weak employee password. And the sad thing is, this company, 150 plus years in the business, had to shut down. I think of the articles mentioned around 3 months after the breach, all started because of this incident. Just a weak employee password, 150 years in business, and then shut down. It was just unrecoverable. Not alone, let alone not mentioning the damage to the reputation of this company. And that's unfortunate. The reality is passwords. There's plenty of good passwords, and the good thing we can mention about passwords is that they're really easy to implement. Let's face the facts. You can tell even your grandparents, hey, go ahead and go online to create your own email. And for the most part, most will be able to create their own username and password. It's a basic function to get online, and most people can do it. That's the good part about it. Now, what's the bad? Unfortunately, the bad here with this image, it's not exaggerating. In the around 26 years I've had in the industry, password 123 ABC has been used. I think a little bit more common though is password 123. That one's a little bit more famous, I think. Aside from other bad practices when it comes to passwords, is not only is it a really simple password like password 123, but some users will even basically use the same password across the board for every single service that they use, which is essentially giving the keys to the kingdom to a bad actor that is trying to infiltrate your network. Now, the ugly. I wish I could say this image I have here in my presentation is an exaggeration. Unfortunately, I've been firsthand witness to this more than once, where you will have people that will literally take a post-it note, put their password, and put it on literally on their monitor. Some have even advanced. They actually take the post-it and put it in their desk drawer. I guess they feel that's a little bit more secure. I don't really know. But yeah, that's when things get really ugly because now anyone that walks by the desk or is just saying hello to everybody, or even after hours, you got people that are working in the office or cleaning. There you go. They have the password. It's right there in front of them. And just equally as ugly is when you have employees that will share passwords via SMS, which, by the way, is not secure, or email. And all it takes is for that device to be compromised. And once again, now you have, depending what the password is, the keys to the kingdom, or whatever service that you were providing the password for or sharing with that person. And I think one of the real ugly things I've seen is where you'll have employees use Excel as essentially a password manager. And then they'll have the false sense of security thinking, okay, with Excel, you can secure it. You can put a password so you can't open up the file at least with a password. First off, any hacker out there worth a grain of salt is going to be able to get into that file regardless. And you're talking about basically using a repository of passwords into one Excel sheet. Again, going back to the keys to the kingdom, that's exactly what you're doing when you're using Excel as a password manager, especially when we're going to go into a little bit here further down. There's so many much better alternatives to using Excel sheet to manage your passwords. What I do recommend doing, number one, in its most basic security principle when it comes to talking about passwords, is using strong password policies. What do I mean by that? For starters, I'd recommend, and I think this is a good start, is a 12 character minimum for your password. And that may sound like a lot, but it also has to do with using different methods when you're using complex passwords. So you won't put something really obscure and really hard to remember. You could use phrases when you're using a 12-character minimum password. And yes, combine it with upper and lowercase letters, include a number and a symbol, and just be aware some services that you use online don't recognize all symbols. You have to use specific symbols. Dollar sign is like a popular one, exclamation mark. Just doing that in itself is a step up when it comes to putting into good security practices when it comes to your password. And something that will work hand in hand with that is using password managers. There's a lot of good tools out there, LastPass, Bitwarden, 1Password. There's many others. Those are some of the big players out there. But the good thing is once you have the habit of using a password manager, that encourages using more complex passwords because let's be real. Let's just say the most you use online is 10 different applications, each one requiring a password, obviously. How easy is it going to be to remember if you decided to, again, putting into good practice, into good security principles when it comes to passwords, if you decided to use an individual password for each account? That's almost impossible to remember. So when you have a password manager, not only I think just about all of them nowadays provide a password generator on top of that, but it makes it really easy to manage and use those passwords. So you don't have to memorize every single password out there. So that's something really good to do. And something else I think it's worth mentioning is avoid using SMS for 2FA. Not that it's bad, I'm not against it. Two-factor authentication with SMS, it's better than nothing. It's just not ideal because yes, you can have whatever service it may be, send the code to your phone, and it's gonna usually 6 or 8-digit code, whatever, and you pop that into whatever you're trying to log into. And that's not bad. I'm not speaking against that, but there's much better things you could use than just that in its most basic form as far as when we're talking about authentication. Speaking of authentication, what do we want to start using and getting more familiar with? As you can see here in how I have it titled, Passkeys and Modern Alternatives. What is a passkey? Number one, it's a much more secure, phishing resistant replacement for passwords. And that's keywords I'm using there, phishing resistant. There's nothing to phish here when it comes to using passkeys. There's no password that you're typing in and you're sending online that can be intercepted. And typically, a passkey is going to be tied to a device. Like a phone is the most common use of this, and you'll have some type of biometrics scanning obviously involved with that, either Face ID, fingerprinting, or a PIN number, etc. And how they work, a very surface level explanation here. I'm not going into too much technical detail, but it's based on public and private cryptography. Essentially, the device has a private key service, whatever it may be. Let's say Google or Microsoft has the public key, and then there's a handshake method there, and next you're connected. You're basically authenticating whatever sending a secret over the internet, which that in itself is just a huge plus when it comes to security. Now, what are some of the providers out there? I just listed a few here. I'm not advocating or promoting any one of these. I do use a Yubico. That image I'm displaying here, it's one of the way the hardware token keys that Yubico offered years ago. It's much different than now. I have actually one here. This is how it looks today. I'm not sure how that looks on camera, but anyway, and there's other providers. 1Password does passkeys, Dashlane, Nu-IDee, and there's many more. Those are some of the bigger, more common ones that I've used or more familiar with. But there's plenty of benefits using this because when it comes to passkeys, like I mentioned before, there's no password to steal or phish. It's really super simple for the employees to understand because it's basically a device, right? You have your device, it authenticates because it's a passkey embedded in it, and that's it. And so it's a faster login experience as well. All Pretty much all the major platforms out there, some social media as well support it for sure. Google, Microsoft, Apple, a few others. A real world use case, for instance, you can log into your Gmail or Dropbox using Face ID. And that's it. You're not typing a password, nothing you have to memorize. It's all just through passkeys. Now, as I mentioned before, not there's a lot of the major players do support it, but there's a lot of platforms that still don't. I think it's something progressive, and as time goes on and more people get familiar with the technology, they'll start implementing it. But if that is the case, that you're working with some type of cloud-based app or online service that is not using or does not support passkeys, a good alternative is a multi-factor authentication. Now, there's a few service providers even for that, like Dual, Authy, Microsoft Authenticator, Google has their own authenticator. Point being, that's an excellent alternative to passkeys. And honestly, in today's age, if you are working with some obscure online service that doesn't support at least at a bare minimum multi-factor authentication, personally, in my opinion, I would just get an alternative. There's really no excuse for any service online, any cloud-based application to not offer that as an option. Some are going as far as enforcing it, but there may be some obscure service I haven't heard of that is not doing MFA. And if they're not, to be frank, I just wouldn't use them. I would just move on with a better alternative because security in today's age really should not be optional. It should be mandatory. That's the only way you're going to protect yourself. And there's other methods of using passkeys too. Like I mentioned, the hardware token, this key is an example of that. It's nice because it's not phone dependent. So you can pop that into your computer and it's NFC enabled. So you can even put it close to your phone if you're trying to authenticate on your phone. And the passkey is actually in the YubiKey itself. Yeah, it's really nifty. Again, I'm not promoting specifically YubiKey. That's just a preference thing, but it works really well if that's something you're interested in moving forward with, something like that. And speaking with that, what's really a good option for your business? Like, how do you come to the conclusion, okay, MFA passkeys, fantastic. I'm glad that's out there. What should I be using then? There's a few things to consider. Number one, and like I mentioned here, the staff tech comfort level. Do you have employees that adapt to changes in your organization when you're transitioning to different applications or different processes with your different digital services? Do you have most of your employee base that takes them a while to adapt and they get really frustrated? And it takes months to get any change implemented when it comes to software because they just they're not very technically inclined. That's something to consider. What device types are you using? Is your business mainly a Windows-based business? Is it Mac? Is it really mobile heavy? Are you using mainly phones and iPads or tablets? That's another thing to factor in. And especially compliance. Is my industry under a certain type of compliance? For instance, if you're dental or medical, you have HIPAA, you have also FTC safeguards rule for a lot of financial institutions. Does my business or does my industry require a WISP document? A lot of that is going to really help you narrow down as far as okay, I really need to start doing this. I can tell you right now, just in the last one with the WISP, but MFA is a must. And then something else to factor in is your budget. What type of budget do I have to spend to make this change? Because some of it does require money, right? And it really depends on the size of your infrastructure, how many employees. That can change based on each individual business. Something that I would suggest is for sure, though, start with a password manager. That's going to be a good entry point for everyone to start using strong passwords and really takes away the excuse, right? Oh, I can't remember. No, it's in your password manager. And literally from your password manager, you can copy and paste into your online application, whatever it may be. Look for, and if you haven't done so already, what are the multi-factor authentication options available to you with every single app you use online? That one is really important because, like I said, there's still a lot out there that don't use passkeys, but multi-factor authentication, that's like a bare minimum at this point, I think, for that everyone should be offering. And if you decide to go with the passkeys route, just something you want to do gradually, Not something that you want to just from one week to the next, hey, we're all using passkeys. It's something that, especially for it to be palatable for the employees, it can be like a phased approach. And there's different methods of doing it. Again, that's all based on the needs of the business. Vendors that you can consider for this, I mentioned it already before, Bitwarden, Dashlane, really good tools for password management, dual security for multi-factor authentication, or basically a third-party multi-factor authentication service tool. And as far as Apple and Google, Microsoft, they all have their own passkey ecosystem, if you will. So they've already adopted this way back when. That's something that is an option already there for you if you're using Google Workspace or Microsoft 365 or Apple. And when it comes to any one of these authentication methods, whether it's passkey or MFA, it's really good to put some type of training in place, whether it be some type of short videos. Some of these services offer some pretty extensive FAQs and knowledge base articles. Team demos that can be or should be presented to all the employees will make it really easy to onboard everyone to the new process. And make sure that this move to get everyone to adapt to these new authentication methods, doesn't have to be set in stone with a target date if you're onboarding someone new. So let's say you have a plan in place and, hey, we're going to start using passkeys for Google Workspace, let's say. And it's going to take us about 3 weeks to roll this out for all the departments, blah, blah, blah. But we got a new employee starting this week. But that new employee just started right from the go. Just give them the passkey and say, hey, this is how you're going to log in. Because that way you're already starting with some employees. And the reality is some are going to learn quicker than others. And those employees that are starting will be able to help others along the way as well. And that's the service level of coverage I have for the passkeys and multi-factor authentication. I want to go ahead and cover any questions that we may have here. And also I'm going to do a quick demo. And I have some questions that, let's see here, was sent over here to me. Okay.
Yes, I we do have two questions. And this is like you covered a little bit, but how do I start using passkeys with my existing system? So what recommendations would you recommend I do? Like where do I
Yeah.
start checking what systems provide that, or what is your recommended approach?
Yeah, so that's gonna change based on each business, obviously. For instance, like I mentioned before, Google, Microsoft, and Apple have their own built-in support for passkeys. What I would say is to start using passkeys with existing systems, I probably some methods I've used in the past, start with some of the critical accounts or admin accounts. If you have an admin account or employee has an admin account, start with that right off the bat. That's a really important one. So that way there's no delay in the process. And those admin accounts, which are typically going to be managers anyway, can help assist the employees when it comes to learning how to adopt this new method. And yeah, definitely, regardless if you're using passkeys or not, if you are using passkeys, what I mentioned before also, for sure use a password manager because a lot of these password managers actually pair up or support passkeys as well. So that's something important to keep in mind.
Awesome. So a combination, right,
Mhm.
of multiple ways to protect the business. Now, I do have a question. What about if I have a non-technical staff, like they're totally non-technical? They're probably still using the 1, 2, 3. So how do you recommend handling that?
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, I hope that's not the case, but I've seen it many times. I would recommend simplifying the onboarding process. I mentioned before a little bit about short training videos, some demo sessions. Also, if you can work with a managed security service provider, such as my company or any company that specializes in this, can really streamline that process for you, make it a lot easier. But if you are going to take it fully hands-on, yeah, start with leadership, I would say. All managers, for sure. If you have an IT staff, definitely start with them and then start cascading to the other teams over the following weeks. And then there's also tools that make this password or the authentication process seamless. I didn't go into too much detail about it, but for instance, Google Workspace, Microsoft Entra ID support SSO and Passkeys. And what that basically means is once you have the passkey in that device, you just log in and that's it. It's a straightforward shot. And then speaking of that, time is getting short here. So I'm going to go ahead and just probably end the questions just for now. And I'm going to show you a quick video on authenticating. In this case, this example I'm going to show, we're going to log into Proton Mail. And on Proton Mail, Proton Mail supports passkeys through a security key. So in this case, using a hardware token key like this YubiKey key. And we're going to go ahead and log in here. So let me see if I can change over to the screen. Okay, here we go. So this is a Proton Mail, very private oriented email, very secure, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to log in and it's going to go ahead and ask for my key. So the key's inserted. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on authenticate and click on my security key. It's going to want me to touch the sensor. Okay. And there you go. Logged in. Pretty straightforward and simple.
Wow, that's
So
awesome. That's really cool. So
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much it's faster than even entering your own password in a way.
yeah. In that case, so let me be clear right there. I was using my YubiKey as a multi-factor authentication tool instead of my phone. And the YubiKey itself, it has an app that you can set up pins for all the different protocols. And then at that point, you have a pin that protects the YubiKey itself. So in the event that you lost it for whatever reason, then it's not going to be like, okay, now my YubiKey can be used by someone else and log into my accounts. No, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, it's really nifty and I think a really powerful method of logging in. So I'm going to go ahead and do just a really brief recap here. Yeah, three things I really hope that everyone can take away here. Number one is start enforcing strong password policies using a password manager, because if you do the first and not the other, it's just not going to happen. People are still going to find ways to, even if you say you set a 12-character minimum, you'll say password 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 or something like that. So if you use a password manager with enforcing a strong password policy for your business, that will definitely help with putting that in practice or for everyone wanting to putting that in practice and making it easier for everyone too. The other thing is, I mentioned it before a few times already, enable multi-factor authentication everywhere you can. There's really no reason an online service today should not be offering this as an option. Not nowadays anyway. And last but not least, yeah, definitely explore passkeys as an option. If your platform supports it, please really consider it. I think more and more we're going to see gradually. I've noticed a lot of cloud-based apps are wanting to and pushing, enforcing multi-factor authentication. And I think eventually, I'm not sure how long it's going to take, nor I'm going to even try to guess, but eventually they're going to push the use, especially for the big players out there. At one point or another, they're going to want people to start using passkeys. And even if they don't, even if that's 5, 10, 15 years down the road, why not start now? It's going to make it a lot simpler for you to log in and much more secure. With that being said, if you want more details with anything that I've covered or how to fine tune this for your business, please feel free to reach out to me. My website is nutechvita.com. I think I have a link where you can book a discovery call with my company, and we can go into more details on how we can set this up and what to set up for your company when it comes to authentication methods. Viviana, do we have that? Is
Yes,
that
I
okay?
just shared it in the chat and will be in the comments as well.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. All right. Yeah. And if not, you can just go to the website, nutechvita.com. You'll see there's a pretty big link there to book a discovery call as well. But at any rate, I want to go ahead and wrap up with that. And thank you very much for joining me today with this webinar. I plan to do more of these, but I'm going to go more into details as far as other different security layers that help protect our business. Once I have that information and that data available, I'll go ahead and send that out to everyone. And one thing I do, or I guess one thing I want to end with is this quote I read. It's pretty interesting to me. The best time to upgrade your authentication was last year. The second best time is today. So, with that being said,
Awesome.
thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Shawn, for coming. It was very good webinar. Thank you, everybody who attended today. And for those that are going to watch you later, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.